I think we're living off, I think America is largely living off the freedom that they had in the early 19th century. And freedom creates that innovation. So we are living off the fruits of of seeds I think we planted in the past, but we're not planting those freedom seeds in the future.
All right, guys, welcome back to the channel. I'm Nick Casciotti. I'm your host. Three diverse views from our Green Party member, Joe, up in Idaho. We've got Kyle. He's our Libertarian in Arizona. And we also have Pod. He is our Republican in the great state of Pennsylvania. So they had the opportunity to get these topics beforehand. I'm going to read you the next topic. They had a few hours to formulate what their responses are going to be. And we're going to start this one off with Pod. So, Pod, as Donald Trump looks to be closing out his final days as a president, some of his most notable policies included massive deregulation, specifically environmental deregulation. What is the effect his actions had, and will they be a concern moving forward? Pod.
Well, it was very welcoming for many of his deregulation. I could be biased here, but I can tell you from my area, Western Pennsylvania, West Virginia, Ohio, the coal industry is something that took the biggest hit from the regulations from the Obama administration. I mean, it's kind of still sets me back when I go back to in 2008, whenever he was in San Francisco saying, you can build that coal-fired power plant, but I'm going to put you out of business. You know, it's just what president tells the American people, I'm going to pick an industry and put it out of business. And so a lot of the deregulation, I mean, if you take the waters of the U.S. role, the underlying part of that, if you had land in Nebraska and you had a big rain and the water would sit in this field in Nebraska or in Illinois, Iowa, anywhere, it sat in this field for 10 days, they would call that a wetland that you couldn't coal mine underneath it. You know, there's the small parts of some of those rules that Obama put in place that was just, it was set to put coal out of business and even gas. I mean, it was an attack on fossil fuels. And I just feel that, you know, some of what Trump did, some of the deregulations, it saved lives. I mean, you know, the fossil fuels aren't the end all to everything. And so I don't think it's going to hurt our environment, what he did, a lot of the changes that he did, as much as they say.
So, Joe, to respond to that, though, I mean, the Green Party is very much in favor of saving the environment, you know, having these regulations put into place by scientists who had the opportunity to review the data. I mean, how would you respond to Pod being very in favor of this type of deregulation?
I'm going to depart a little bit because the reason why I have an awful lot of friends who are environmental activists. They go out, they try and do things, they try and accomplish things in the environment that we live in. Problem is an awful lot of these regulations also prevent environmental health. You see it all throughout the Western United States right now. The continued fires are the result of regulations that were created by organizations like the Sierra Club. You know, the natural process doesn't actually allow the earth to heal or create because we aren't maintaining a strong balance in the way those environments are managed. Bureau of Land Management comes in, they do their things. Our natural wildlife or wilderness designations continue to create problems as far as clearing out underbrush. We overhunt, we keep the megaflora and megafauna, you know, under what's needed in order to keep those environments safe. So him deregulating those creates a lot of opportunity for environmental care to go in and do things they haven't been able to do because of doubling down on bad policies that were created 40 years ago.
So does environmental care, so does environmental care mean take away these regulations and add in scientifically proven new ones?
Scientifically proven processes and procedures is what it comes down to. And ultimately that needs to be determined at a regional level rather than at the state or at the national level or the federal level. So right now we have federal regulations that prevent us from adapting to the bioregimes or bioregional areas in the Pacific Northwest. We have a rainforest up here, Washington State, Idaho, the mountainous regions. We need to treat it differently than we do the Badlands in Utah, differently than we handle things in California, and even to a certain degree, as Pot brought up, the way we handle agricultural land in Nebraska and our breadbasket.
Kyle, so as we mentioned before, right now the United States, talking about specifically environmental regulation and Trump rolling back a lot of that. I mean, that was a big signature of his term as president. We mentioned the United States, between our 50 states and our multiple territories out there, we've got the most rules, laws, and regulations of any country in the history of this planet. But we're the most free as they sell to us. How do those go hand in hand?
They they don't. The rules and regulations in general most of them are egregious. Most of them do massive more harm than good. The government doesn't care about you. They don't care about the environment. They actually don't care about what they claim to care about. They have the programs that get built create people who have their own incentives to keep them running. So as a libertarian, we promote private property rights and maybe expand those rights. What we want to do is we want to tie people to the cost of doing damage to the environment. The more you can tie people the more you can punish people for doing damage, the more you're going to get better behavior collectively. And I guess that's the biggest thing is property rights.
Well, then how do you identify who's doing damage, right? So damage to you could mean something completely different to damage to me, right? So to Pod's earlier comment, flooding these wetlands and whatnot, that may be seen in my eyes as the crops need more water, right? If I'm not educated on it or not. I mean, how do you define what's damaging to one person and not to another to have all these rules and regulations?
So if all that land was privatized, then that rule would apply to the people who own the land. They would determine whether you're doing damage, and they could probably they can prosecute you if you're doing X, Y, and Z to it. That doesn't. We do have. I mean, there is a role for government to play. We just have to be very careful in that role.
Sure, Pod. He's talking about massive deregulation. Now, we've seen a lot of deregulation with the Trump administration be put into place. Now, on the flip side of that, the Obama administration added massive regulation, especially to your area where you talk about the natural gas and the coal mining. Do you foresee that Trump's rollback on these procedures having a long-term effect, or do you think Biden is just going to wipe all of that out?
Well, he's already said that he's going to ban fracking. The fracking isn't as bad as what everybody says, and I think some regulation is good. There's a gentleman I read about. His name is, I wrote it down. His name's Nassim Nicholas Taleb. And this gentleman wrote an article about the IYI, intellectual yet idiot. So it's people that are very intellectual, yet they're writing our policies for things that they've never done. And I think that's what happens with some of the people that write the regulations. They don't have a clue what they're writing for about. They're just told to write a regulation. They never go right to the scene and work with the people, whether they're coal miners or contractors or what have you out there. You have to have a little common sense when it comes to regulations. And yes, the environment, saving the environment is number one. And I think the Republicans get a bad rap as we're the ones that aren't concerned about the environment. And that isn't true. I think everybody is concerned about that. And it just takes a common sense to approach to all this.
Sure. Joe, I'll give you the last word.
So the pushback on Kyle has to be with private property. Green Party has an eco-socialist platform. The air we breathe, the water we drink, the food we eat, all of it's contaminated by the same contaminants that have been deregulated. The issue that brings up with regards to the deregulation that Donald Trump did, while I see it partially as a good, Donald Trump also didn't lift any of the protections that protect those organizations from doing pollution. So right now they got carte blanche to go out and pollute at will, and they won't have to pay any larger fines than they did in any previous incidences. So we need to bring it back to, as Kyle pointed out, the stakeholders need to be able to hold the polluters responsible. We need to be able to have an Aaron Brockovich in every community in the United States watchdogging these organizations so that when they do step out of bounds and when they do screw up, somebody's holding them accountable and they're ready to be sued and bankrupted for endangering the lives of the communities that they operate in.
As compared to the mainstream media, this is a great opportunity for you to not only get right, left, but you also heard tonight from a libertarian as well as a Green Party member. So we appreciate you joining us. Hit that subscribe button, give us a thumbs up, and we look forward to seeing you next time. Bye, guys. Take care.